violence affected your campaigning?
Well, I'll tell you, last night when I got news of the shooting incident, I happened to be worshiping in a synagogue down in South Florida. Part of the service was partially about the 11 individuals who are being laid to rest in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania as a result of the violence, obviously, and the gun violence that we keep seeing, as I said on stage, that is far too pervasive in our communities. I have obviously been a pretty consistent believer and champion for common sense gun reform. These incidences continue to remind me that we've got to be vigilant on this issue. But I also have to tell you, I think that we've got to be real careful about the political rhetoric that we've seen. The president, Mr. DeSantis, others around the country, we used to be able to disagree principally on the issues. And quite frankly, in this race, there are enough issues under which we can disagree. But the fact that that kind of rhetoric and disagreement is now leading to political violence, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I've run this race trying to give voters something to go out and vote for, not just against. And as I have said before, and the president will be in our state today, I hope that he will use this as an opportunity to provide lift. You can be for your candidate. You can point out the differences between your candidate and myself. But you got to be very, very careful with the kind of heated rhetoric that we see that is leading to political opponents to send bombs into mailboxes of people who have criticized the president, to go into houses of worship and to open fire is unacceptable. And so our nation deserves better, and this state deserves better than that.
A big part of coming out here today was to encourage people to early vote, especially students. How critical do you think that's going to be in these last couple of days? Yeah,
so I think, first of all, I'm a big, big believer in early voting. Would encourage anyone who has not voted yet to take the opportunity to do so. God knows what will happen on Election Day. Why not take the time? We've got constitutional amendments on the ballot. Be focused, take your time, cast your ballot, and then on Election Day, spend your time trying to get your neighbors and your friends out to vote. I've been impressed with some of the early vote numbers that we've seen across the state. We've already shattered records. I think 4 million people have already voted in this state. We may be seeing potentially 2/3 of voters in the state of Florida will have voted before Tuesday comes. If you're not in that number, I encourage you to be part of that number. I'm going to keep working up to the very, very end to turn out our voters. If people vote, and in my opinion, the more people who vote, the greater encouragement that we get that we're going to win this race.
Last one.
You have said, regarding to immigration, you say you will abolish ICE because you will replace it with an agency that works and keeps the community safer. Yeah. Immigrants, they are victims of crime. Immigrants are not only close to the border, there are immigrants here, many immigrants in this state. How will you work for them?
Yeah,
even though they're not citizens.
Well, if you're here in the state of Florida, it's our job to ensure to your safety and to your protection, to make sure that we're not turning the state of Florida over into a show me your paper state. It is not the American way, based off the way someone looks, the language they speak, the neighborhoods that they live in, to profile them and to criminalize them based off of the way that they look again or the language that they speak. We have advocated that we ought to see ICE in a department like the Department of Justice where it will have fidelity to doing its job. Right now the president has them on a mission where instead of watching out for fentanyl containers coming in from Asia that is dropping these kinds of illicit drugs in our neighborhoods all across the country and certainly here in the state of Florida, we've been on the receiving end of that. Instead of dealing with sex traffickers, violent criminals coming into the United States, we haven't had major migration over the border for nearly 2 decades. The president has turned the eye of our immigration enforcement officials off the ball. We want to keep our nation safe. We are a nation of borders. We are a nation of laws. The people of this country deserve comprehensive immigration reform. Our members in Congress ought to do that work. These are hardworking members of the federal government. They deserve our respect. They also deserve not to be used as political tools and instruments. Instead of ripping babies away from their nursing parents, we ought to be making sure that drug traffickers and fentanyl containers aren't making their way into the United States. Allow these folks to do the jobs that they're there to do, not to serve some political point for the president.
All right.
Thank y'all for the opportunity. Thank y'all.